when you think about it. That's just so brutal. It's like you shot your own dog. As most of you know, Oreo, our dog who we've had for 5 years, died this last weekend. It was very unexpected. We left on Friday morning and we didn't see him that morning. We'd seen him the night before. But that's not unusual because he'll run off back in our woods or, you know, be chasing animal trails. When we came home that evening, it was really quite late. Put the kids in bed and we heard a barking. So I went out and searched the whole yard and I found him. He had fallen down these stairs and was just laying right there and couldn't even stand up or walk. And he could just barely lift his head. He was laying. He was shaking. He looked like he was having a hard time breathing. He had some pretty significant injuries to his forehead area. I think he had been hit by a car, so we carried him up. It was to the porch. We gave him a lot of water. He never lifted his head, but he just licked up the water. He wasn't interested in food, and we sat with him for a while. Here's Oreo's grave. We were at a really hard point that night because we had to decide something. We knew this was coming, but it was a surprise and a shock that it happened in this way. And we sat with him for a while. He didn't get any of his strength back. He could barely lift his head, and honestly, the big deciding factor was that he was just miserable. He was totally miserable. And we made the decision to put him down. And so I took him out here and actually finished him off with a rifle. And I know that's a horrible thing to say or do when you think about it. That's just so brutal. It's like you shot your own dog. That's something you would just never like imagine. Okay, I'm gonna kill my own dog. And it was definitely very hard that night for me. And I waited and waited. It was about 1 in the morning when we finally did it. I think it was probably the best thing for him, because if we had him put down at a vet, we would have had to carry him, and it's actually painful when you move him around with his back legs, carry him to the car, drive him out, drive him to the vet. It may have actually been the next morning before we got to a vet. So I think it was really the best thing. I just wonder what you guys think, if you've ever had an experience like this where you had this decision like, okay, do I do this myself? Or do I wait and let a professional handle it? And so often I think we pass off this type of thing, which is, it's just like, it's a normal human thing to do, to put a suffering animal out of its misery. Or even, you know, we might think about it's a normal thing to kill animals for meat. And yet that's something that most people actually in the Western world don't do on a regular basis. But I do think these are just normal, I might even say good things that humans do, and there's no reason that we shouldn't do them, in my opinion, if we can do them in a merciful manner. We dug a hole that night and buried him. We took the kids all out here and just kind of sat around Oreo's grave, and we talked about the things that we loved about him, and all the kids got to share. And this is the one thing I was afraid of, that they wouldn't understand, because we told them the whole story. We didn't hide from them that he didn't die on his own. They understood that he was suffering and that it was the best thing. One kind of cool thing about this story, kind of the bright note, is that these puppies were Oreo's constant companion for his last months. And they were always licking him in the face and jumping on him, and they admired and loved him entirely. And he was the top dog to his last day. He would not let these dogs even eat a bite of food on the porch. We had to wait till Oreo left, and then we had to feed the puppies because he would chase them off from their food. All right, thank you all for joining us and listening to a short story about Oreo, our dog, and his last day.